Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our continuing series, the Unported playlist, where we take a look at some of my favorite unported arcade games. And I'm not even sure what number we're at now because I just keep making them because you guys love watching them. And I really do appreciate that, so thanks for tuning in. And today we're taking a look at A.B. Cop, released in 1990 by Sega on their X Arcade series board. And it kind of feels like Space Harriers if you had a futuristic motorcycle, because it definitely has that super scalar technology built in, and you get a lot of really nice sprite scaling and depth effects on it. But as far as the game's concerned, the concept is quite simple. You are a cop on a hover motorcycle, and you need to destroy your enemies. And there is no cannon, there is no gun. The only way you complete this is by ramming into them. And you'll see that they're indicated by these red arrows right here. So as far as how to get into the game, it's really easy. Accelerate your bike and smash into things. You have a turbo button, and you also are able to jump, so if you need to avoid obstacles, you certainly can, although I don't really find that necessary in the game. I would say that this game is quite simple to play. You'll see there, I saw my enemy, I bumped into him, he's dead. It kind of feels a little bit like Road Rash in a way, except a lot faster and a lot more fun to look at considering the hardware that it was on, but it's definitely not the deepest game. But sometimes when I'm playing arcade games, I kind of just want that. I mean, I love playing beat 'em ups, but sometimes those last over an hour, where a run through of A.B. Cop you can definitely beat in like 10-15 minutes if you're good at it. So there is a place for these type of games. Now granted, the arcade cabinet was a lot more fully featured than something like emulation, so you lose a little bit of that charm by just using a keyboard and mouse, or in my instance an Xbox One controller, but it's definitely still a lot of fun to play, and I really appreciate experiences that I can just drop in for 10 minutes, enjoy, and then go on about my day and do whatever else I need to do, because sometimes I don't have all the time in the world to play an hour-long arcade game. But really, it is a fun experience, and this is something that Sega was great at making. You'll see I jumped there up onto that waterfall, and now I'm attacking another enemy, and it's just a simple premise, but it's done so well that it becomes addicting, and it becomes challenging enough where you will have to replay stages because you're not going to be able to beat all the enemies in one go. Now I will say the game can be quite difficult in the later stages, because unlike some other arcade games where when you run out of time, you just put another credit in and start where you finished from, in A.B. Cop, when you lose, you have to start the beginning of the stage again. So if you find a stage that you're having some struggles with, which I definitely did when I was playing it, you're going to have to go back to the beginning of the stage. So it does artificially kind of elongate the playtime for the game, and I don't think that's a bad thing if you're emulating it because you're not pumping in quarters. But if you were in an arcade, you probably wouldn't see the end of this unless you really wanted to, because after your third or fourth credit of losing and having to start right back where you started from, you might get annoyed. But I do like the boss battles here. I mean, it's the same premise, smash into your opponent, but they're going to shoot projectiles at you and either to jump over or otherwise avoid with the motion of the bike, and each boss is slightly different, and all their patterns are pretty easy to read. But you'll see there, I think I beat that boss with like 4 seconds left, so the timing is tight. And I will say that it kind of feels slightly unfair as later levels go on, but if you go into the service menu, you can certainly increase the amount of time you get per credit, making it easier. It doesn't really change any of the gameplay up whatsoever, it just makes it easier because it gives you more time. And you will see there I run right into that obstacle, the back of that truck. It definitely put things in your way to slow you down, and as the game goes further, you're going to get more. What I love so much as these trees go by is the game has such an incredible sense of speed. It's running at 60 frames a second, everything's flying by, the sprite scaling looks great, so you definitely get a really good sense of forward momentum that you don't get in some other arcade games, like when we were showing Lucky and Wild. It's an awesome game, but even when you're supposedly going 150 miles an hour in that game, it never feels as fast as something like this. And you will see here I got my first time over, and we do have to start from the beginning. Granted, through the magic of editing, I pushed us forward, but if you get stuck on a stage, the game can become frustrating. But it is still one of my favorite unported arcade games, because I always love these Sega Super Scalar games, Afterburner, Space Harriers, things like that. They were definitely some of my favorites to play in arcades, and I definitely played this back in the early 90s at my local arcade, the Dream Machine, and I remembered really enjoying it. I wanted to feature it on this episode. And you'll see that the bosses, they are patternistic, because I'm avoiding those skulls by going left and right, and then I'm coming in to slam into the boss when I have an opening. So you do need to be a little bit more paying attention in a game like this, so that you realize what's supposed to be done and how you can be effective, because if you just try to charge directly at the enemy over and over again, you're going to keep getting hit back and you're going to run out of time. What I'll let you do now is watch this next little level from start to finish. It's got a great soundtrack and sound effects, so enjoy it. I'll be back in just a second to talk more about AB Cop. And the clown is dead, and I would say he's quite creepy at that, and I'm not really even the type of person that thinks clowns are creepy, but doves shoot out of him when you beat him. I don't really understand what's going on there, but I don't really think I need to. And you will see again that I beat him with no time on the clock. So now as we're getting into later stages, it's definitely getting much more difficult. And I do appreciate that because I don't like an arcade game that doesn't have any challenge. But inversely, I also don't like being completely punished to the point where it starts feeling like work to play the game. And that's a hard balance in arcade games. I'm definitely going to be showing another game shortly that I really enjoy but becomes so difficult that I've never actually been able to beat it, just the way it's structured. So I think that AB Cop straddles that really nice line between challenging and competitive without feeling too cheap, and also not being so easy that you can just pump quarters into it and beat the game in 10 minutes because it lets you win. And I think Sega does a really good job with all their arcade games in that respect. They're not one of those companies that makes the games so incredibly difficult to play that it gets classified as a quarter muncher, but they're also not a company that makes you be able to just pay to win, and I do appreciate that from them. But I do love this futuristic cityscape here with all the different tunnels you're going through and everything on the left and right as far as the highway is concerned. The game just has a great sense of speed, and I think that more than anything is why I really love this game. And I kind of just like the setting of it, this kind of like neo-futuristic cityscape where you have hover bikes and these robot overlords that you're trying to fight. It definitely has a futuristic vibe to it, or at least what they thought the future was going to look like in 1990. I even like when your bike gets hit there, you spin around, you can see it's a pre-rendered sprite. They definitely went above and beyond, just kind of putting little flourishes in there visually that make the game look even more powerful than it was in 1990, because pre-rendered sprites weren't a thing that you were getting a ton of then. They became really prevalent with things like Donkey Kong Country, but Sega definitely knew how to make them before. And now we're moving on to the final stage in the game, and I will say that at least on this playthrough, I did get frustrated and I decided not to capture the whole thing for a long play, because we now have a boss gauntlet and the time is extremely tight to be able to beat them. They have less health, which makes it easier. You'll see there I was able to destroy that first person quite quickly, but as you go on, even the simplest mistake is going to render you on a loss, and it's something that you have to play this level perfectly. And you've been playing the game long enough at this point in time, if you are playing it, that you've gotten quite good at the patterns, but even that one claw that I took right there knocked 2 seconds off, and the timing is so tight that it's going to be challenging. But I 100% recommend you go out and emulate and play this game. You're really not going to want to get an original copy because the controls on it are quite difficult. You could definitely get them to work at home, but it's going to be quite the project. And honestly, I don't know that it would be worth it, but playing it on an emulator, 100% worth it. But that is AB Cop, an awesome, super scalar looking game from 1990. Really appreciate you guys watching this. If you could do us a huge favor, go down below and hit like, subscribe. It takes us a lot of time and energy to make these episodes, and we really appreciate your support. If you have any questions, leave them below. But we'll be back next Sunday with another episode in our Unported Arcade series, and on Tuesday and Friday with our episodes as well. But we ran out of time. Bye-bye.